y'all, I'm Ellen. We've been super inspired by our journeys of self-healing and discovery.
And I'm Sam, and we want to share our experiences with you to help you get curious about yourself, reconnect, and get intentional about your life so you know what makes you happy.
Welcome to Woo New, the podcast. We're really just so grateful and excited to have with us today Michelle Burke. She is a sound healing facilitator. She creates these really beautiful, incredible sound healing productions and spaces. And it's unlike any other type of sound healing that I have personally experienced. She's a vibrational sound therapist. She's a breath work guide, and she's also a HeartMath practitioner. And I had the incredible honor of learning from her before the lockdown last year, over the course of 2 days, her sound healing level one class. And I just learned so much from Michelle. And it was super rad also to come back into connection with a woman, an individual, a soul that I had actually never met before, but I had known of her work prior to this sound healing class, as she was also like the founder and curator of the Create Fixate movement, which is this nonprofit arts organization. And she threw these amazing art events that showcased emerging artists. And I just, back in my days as a creative in an agency, I was very much about the Create Fixate events. And so fast forward, a few years and learning that Michelle had kind of created, she's really known as, her handle is Sonic Being on Instagram, and her website is sonicbeing.com. But she has kind of like shaped her life through this offering of sound healing that I found just so beautiful. And I don't know, there was just something very synchronous about kind of meeting up with Michelle as this new offering as a sound healer. And she's been doing this a while. It's not that she's new to it, but when I reconnected with her, like her kind of new iteration, I was just like, wow, I love the way the universe works. So thank you so much, Michelle, for just joining us today and sharing your experiences and sharing this time with us.
Thanks for having me, and what a lovely introduction. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here speaking to the both of you.
Yeah, this has been something that I've been looking forward to for a really long time, ever since I've taken that class with you. And, we're recording this 2 days after the new moon in Leo and the pinnacle of the Lionsgate portal. And you had just created this really beautiful production in Malibu that I think you're still recovering from. And I so wish that I could have been there to experience it IRL.
Yeah, I am definitely still recovering. It was so magical and amazing. But anytime that we bring all the instruments and have a huge team come together in the great outdoors, we have to start from scratch creating our container. Mm-hmm. And it is definitely a lot of work, but when it all comes together, it's just, you're in awe of it all. And it's a bit of a blur for me as the producer and facilitator as we move through it, but that aftermath when everyone's reaching out to you and posting pictures and you get to relive it, and it's been so positive. And we're already thinking about the next one. It was a new property that we found, this beautiful piece of land up in the Malibu mountains. So we're excited to return, and possibly for the full moon in a couple weeks. So we got to get out there now while the weather is nice. So
yeah, that sounds so magical. I'm just like daydreaming right now about being surrounded by like healing frequencies and sound. Just so incredible.
It was to be out in nature with the birds were singing, and then we had the crickets. Oh my God. It was just so, I just can't even, I don't have the words at the moment, but when you connect with the elements like that, with these amazing sounds, and even when we got started, more birds came. Like there was this build
Wow.
of all the birds singing and connecting to the land. And then of course, at the end, when you wake up, because we start in the daylight at sunset, and when you wake up in the dark, and then the stars, just
Oh
seeing all the
gosh.
stars, because we're in the Malibu mountains, further away from the city. So there was a few shooting stars, and
Mm.
that's that extra magic, especially for new moon and Lionsgate portal. So yeah,
Man.
I wish you all were there.
I know. I'm like, as you're talking about it, I literally feel like I'm being transported back to that moment. And like literally tears are coming into my eyes. And the crickets,
Mm.
when you're talking about the crickets, oh my gosh, I they have literally just started up here in Idlewild. And every night, right around I want to say like 7 p.m., you start hearing their like symphony, and then as
Mm.
the light's going down and the sun's going down and the night is kind of coming up, it's just, I like literally, I feel like I get a sound bath every single night just with the
Mm.
crickets. It's like,
So nice.
oh my gosh. And then to have them join you in this like beautiful practice, really, like it's like extra, you know, beings that are just helping create that incredibly healing sound bath. Like, wow, I can't even imagine. Wow.
Yeah, I think the more connected we are to nature, I mean, all the spirits, they come and support us and give us messages along our journey. So the more we are open to listening and witnessing how nature dances around us.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Okay, let's just start at the beginning because I always feel like there's always a story there. How, and I don't know the story actually, how did you transition from, or maybe you were doing it concurrently, but from Create Fixate to creating Sonic Being and becoming this beautiful sound healer?
Yeah, there's a story for sure. um, so, yeah, I was producing Create Fixate, running the arts organization for almost 15 years, and absolutely rewarding experience from so many angles, from even myself being an artist and being a creative, in presenting myself in the beginning, the early days, but then at some point my efforts were more focused on designing the shows, curating, and coming up with the themes. And I would do all the graphic design, and I was painting with the artists all around me, and just tapping into the energy and the communal energy, the collective energy, and tuning into what is the next energy that we need to drop into. So I would always consciously pick themes where artists would express themselves through the theme. They'd all create at least one piece supporting the theme along with their regular body of work. And this would serve as an inspiration to cultivate this conversation, and using creativity as the catalyst of that conversation to bring people together and connect with what, as human beings, what we need to be focusing on, and how we are growing and evolving. So that was my intention behind every single theme that I chose. And so my personal creativity, I used to have some visual artwork, and I did dabble in making music at one point, and that was more of a hobby. And I ended up putting, kind of pushing that aside and devoting all my energy to curating the shows. And it's a lot of fun, a lot of fun. And so at some point, I accidentally fell into sound healing through an old neighbor of mine who lived up the street. She had a Buddhist group, Buddhist chanting, and she would invite me over. And every time I would go and chant with them, I would feel amazing after. And of course, there were beautiful teachings, that the second half of the session would be about. But I was just in awe of what I was feeling inside my body, like vibrationally. And I'm like, it's not just a spiritual thing, like there's science behind this. And I wanted to understand that. And I was not a singer. I can't call myself a singer. I do vocal toning and I love teaching that to other people. And I am a backup singer for some of my other friends that have developed that side of themselves. But I went to the bookstore and I was looking for a book on chanting, and I found some books on mantra. And then next to that in the section, there was some books on sound healing. And I'm like, sound healing, what is that? Like, this is a thing. So I grabbed a couple of those books and went home and I started reading them, and I couldn't put the books down. It was just so fascinating. Went back to the bookstore and there's even more books that were like, this is your brain on music, and kind of talking about the neurological side of it, the science side. And that's kind of where I'm at. I'm in the middle of where spirit meets science is what I like to say it, and music. So the first 6 months I was just self-studying, reading all these books up. And sure enough, I think it was only the one or two times that they had the sound healing conference in LA. It was happening 6 months later. So of course, I bought my ticket immediately when I heard about it. And I believe it was like 5 days. I spent every single day there. And that's when I heard the crystal bowls for the first time. And I think this was back in 2007 or 2008. And I slapped those bowls on the credit card. I bought I bought a full set of the chakra bowls, and then I even got an alchemy bowl, which are pretty pricey, and went home, and I had these treasures that anytime a friend would come over and they're like, what is that? And I'm like, close your eyes and listen. And I would I remember in the early days of Lightning in a Bottle, I brought my bowls out. This is like, no one knew about sound healing. And we're like in this little tent dome, with a group of friends. We're all playing my bowls, and, and everyone's just, it was just fun. And it was underground at the time. And so I was still doing Create Fixate, and nobody knows this except my production team, but I would, when we're setting up the art gallery, I'd go in there with my alchemy bowl and do a little blessing. And I also had all my tuning forks. And when I was going to Burning Man, I was the person that had tuning forks in my bag, and I'd be like, you want to hit?
That's so amazing.
I would pull out my tuning forks, and with the ohm frequency, and everyone just loved it. And I'd give them a little a tune up, and that was me. And I we've all done our experimenting with substances and all that. And, I stopped drinking a long, long time ago. For me, it was sound. And as I look back to my younger days, I loved dancing. Dancing was a form of meditation. And especially way back in the day, I would go out to some of these desert parties, and it was just amazing to like dance under the full moon. And the way that I would listen to the music is I would just really listen to every single layer of the sounds, and just meditate to the rhythm, and just let it take me away. And some people get on the dance floor to flirt and connect with people. And like, for me, I was just like, don't bother me. And, guys would be like, can I dance with you? And I'm like, well, everyone's dancing. We're all dancing. And I'm like,
exactly what I would do.
I'm like, and I was just like, back off. I'm meditating. I couldn't say that, I couldn't say, so, but for me, it was just music and sound that's my substance. That's my drug. And, so I I'm grateful for my neighbor down the street, because she turned me on to this. And I went to that conference and got to sit in workshops with some of the leaders in the field. And like today, I kind of joke around. I in my head, I call them the elders, because now there's this whole new generation of sound healing. And I started sharing sound baths in people's homes. My friends would be like, come, play your bowls in my living room and let's invite friends over. And we would have, dinner and a little sound meditation. And I was still doing the art shows. And some of my friends are like, you need to do more of this. Like, this is your calling. And I was still figuring it out. Like, there was no training on how to give a sound bath. I'm like, I love educating people. I love helping people evolve and grow, inspiring people. And so I had to fumble a little bit in the beginning. Like, how do I explain all this? How do I not talk too much and talk about the science and the spiritual side and, learn how to guide people. And it was a lot of fun to go through that. And now, like, when I teach in my trainings, I now get to give advice to the new generation of sound healers that are coming forward to help spread the good vibrations. And so at one point, so basically what happened was the Create Fixate is a nonprofit, and it just got a little difficult. There was a moment in the nonprofit world where grants got harder to win. And then also I was actually personally going through some family things. Like, my father passed away in 2012. And I think it was right after that is when I decided to start developing sonic being. And I signed myself up for that my first training in sound healing. And then, so I guess the pivotal moment was when my mom became terminal, and I had to, there's the year where, it was cancer, and she decided to try chemo and the whole thing. And we live in a different state from each other. So I had to fly back to Florida and help, take care of her. And we all took turns in my family. So it was hard for me to keep the arts organization running, but for some reason, sound, the doors kept opening up for sound healing. I was getting more and more calls for sound baths. I think at that point I was slowly working in the studios, some of the yoga studios. And, you get to that point where you have to go with the door that's opening. And also I needed to be there for my mom, and I'm happy to share this part of the story. And we all go through these real life moments. So after that, I was like, you know what, I'll just take an official break from the art world and focus on this. And that's kind of what happened. And I was able to hold space for my mom. And it was really beautiful to, every time I'd fly back home to Miami, I would bring some instruments. And when we got to the point of hospice, I would actually put the nurses to work. And I was teaching them how to use the tuning fork. And then we would, if a family member would come by, we would, everyone would have a Tibetan bowl in their hand, and I'm with my crystal bowl, and we would give my mom sound baths. And
wow.
And it was so lovely. There's a fun moment where it was a whole thing just getting her to take a hot bath. And I had to clear the bathroom because she started like storing things in the one bath. There was a couple of bathrooms in her house, but the one that was closest to her bed, she turned it into a closet. So I had to I had to clear it out and get the bath running. And she kept like declining. And I'm like, Mom, the hot water, it's almost full. There's bubbles. And I just tuned the water with the tuning fork.
Nice.
And I finally got her up into the bath. And then I had a couple Tibetan bowls in there, and just to see her, it was just one of those moments, like all the stress on her face, like she just relaxed and basically fell asleep in the water. And I'm just, slowly striking the Tibetan bowls around her and just see her in this peaceful moment. It was just amazing. And I guess I share this story is the one thing I did learn about transition is when you're going through all of that, there's so much happening. Nothing prepares you. Like there's, caregiving, there's the insurance, there's managing other people that are coming into your home to help with the caregiving.
Yeah.
There's financial things. And you don't get to just stop and have these intimate moments with your loved ones. And I wish there was more guidance on that. And how can we vibrationally help people through these transitions, major transitions in life? And now, and then even when we were back in the hospital environment, I would lug all my instruments in, and I would create, I put crystals and flowers. And there's even a moment, it was kind of a fun moment. My mom didn't like the artwork in the room, and I started grabbing artwork from the hallway and switching it out. And the nurse is like looking at me from down the hall, like, what's going on? And then she kind of comes over. She's like, oh, I see what you're doing. She's like, oh, this room is empty. If you like that painting, and she was all getting into it with me. I just wanted to create the most beautiful environment for my mom. And every time they'd walk in, they're like, the energy in here is so amazing compared to the other rooms. And I'm like, all hospital environments should be like this.
Yes.
I know. I think about that all the time for people who are in hospice care, or even like I think about kids all the time who have, cancer or any health conditions that require them to be in the hospital more than they're at home. And it's like, what a terrible place to be stuck, And we could do so much more to make it a positive, like high vibrational, uplifting experience for everyone.
Yeah. And the other thing that was pretty crazy about that experience is all the machines, all the beeps, the noises that they make. And when, they sent us home, because this is the sad part, in insurance world, if you don't pass within so many days of being in the hospice, they send you back home. And then after so many days, you can go back into the hospital. And of course, you could choose, like, where do you want to pass and everything. But for whatever reason, it was a slower process with my mom. So there was a lot of back and forth. So they would send me home with machinery, the oxygen machine. And there was, two other machines, like the lung. It's a whole thing. I don't want to get too much into this, but these machines were really loud, and they weren't the most soothing sounds. And I was like calling the hospice people, and I'm like, with all the money you make, you gotta get some engineers on this, because this is not how someone should go out. And I was a bit of a, I was stirring things up a little bit, and I'm like, I'm a sound healer, and you need to understand these things. And so I could write stories about the things that I witnessed with Western medicine. And one day, maybe I will. I'll write an article and everything, because it was just wild. It was just kind of, doing everything I could to keep it beautiful and peaceful for her. And I think I did. I was able to show up, at a whole nother level. And, after going through it when my father passed, and getting an understanding, and then also doing my own healing work after him, I was able to, up the ante and have this amazing, mother-daughter closing at the end. And there's a point where she's like, who are you? You're not my daughter. She's like, where did you learn all of this? And I'm like, well, do you like it? She's like, I love it. And I'm like, all right.
Just out of curiosity, how did you find a solution that sort of like tempered those negative noises from the machines?
Well, the oxygen machine actually had a really long tube. So this is kind of funny, but I had to put the machine in my mom's closet, and I literally duct tape the cord, or the tube that the oxygen travels through. I like duct taped it to the walls, to reach over to her bed, to at least get rid of that sound.
That it's like a hissing sound, right? It's like,
yeah, there's that, but the not so great sound really was, she had a stomach pump at the very end. And literally that was like a little motor, like full blown motor, like a motorboat or I don't know, lawnmower sound almost. Oh, gosh. And that was horrible, because you didn't have a long tube to move that away from her. So I was the other thing I did is I would constantly play music. So
Mm.
I had the Bluetooth speaker, and she loved piano music, and so I was just on YouTube and Spotify, like getting all the playlists together. And I did the same thing in the hospital. When you're in the hospital, a lot of the machines are actually hidden in the walls, so
Oh.
so there's that barrier of a lot of those sounds, but you still have the beeps. You also have people walking in the hallways, and
Mm-hmm.
depending on where you're stationed, where the room is, if you're close to the nurse station, you hear them. If the doors open,
Mm.
and yeah, it's just really wild, and it's I feel in the hospital environment, they're machines. That's what they've become,
Yeah.
and they show up for work. They have to get so much done. I feel the nurses, they each are assigned so many patients to look after, and they're I almost say they're overworked. They have
Hmm.
too much on their plate in
Yeah.
the end,
They're
and
overextended, certainly.
yeah, that's the word, overextend it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I would love to go into a hospital environment and be an advisor on what is the end user experience. And that's something I've always thought about. That's how my brain works. From curating the art shows to the sound baths, I'm like, what is the experience on the other end? And how can I pay attention to the authenticity of it, the integrity of what you're doing and what you're providing. So, um,
I love that you're bringing this up right now, only because, we are existing in a time where so many are in hospitals and basically living out the rest of their life within the hospital, especially with COVID looming over us and stuff. And I just find that, like, I have never thought about the droning, the motor, all the noises
Mm.
that surround you within a hospital environment. Like, I look at, maybe because I'm more of a visual person, but I mean, music has been like a part of my life, like since the very beginning. So I am very audio as well. But for me, it's always like the ugly walls, like the,
Yeah.
yeah,
uninspiring art, and just the clinical coldness, like, of the hospital. But the sound is so much of that as well. And I think you're just bringing up so many important things in just this
yeah,
short conversation around. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with
yeah.
your
Well,
mom.
when you're in the womb, the first
Mm-hmm.
you develop your hearing is one of the first things that you develop, and then when you're leaving your body, it's the last thing that leaves.
Oh,
So,
wow. I didn't
you
know that.
know, yeah, so I have some really magical moments with my mom when her body was shutting down, and getting signals from her when I was asking her some questions, like getting even just a slight moan out of her to just know that she heard me.
Mm.
And but yeah, so even with their if they're sedated, a lot of these medications, you can still hear, like you may not be able to move and feel too much in your body, but you can still hear people talking in the room. And so, yeah.
I was reading this, sorry to interrupt you. But this is a crazy thing that I was just reading about, this phenomenon where people develop like high level anxiety from being sedated, in surgery, and then subconsciously hearing things that the surgeons are talking about,
Oh
and then
man.
waking up and having like developing these new anxieties or these new like
Mhm.
fears that they then have to work through and have no idea where it came from. And then ultimately it's like it triggers back to this one moment where they were completely sedated, but all of that messaging just got locked in their subconscious mind.
Wow.
And it's great that you brought that up, because that's really what sound healing is about. Is these are vibrational imprints on our physical vessel, and understanding that we're a tape recorder,
Mm.
Yeah.
and almost, I always say this in my sessions, we fall in and out of tune. So there's one thing, you can give ourselves tune ups by working with our voice, and we're being dedicated to a meditation practice, whether it's sound healing or something else, just nurturing the vessel. But the more you can understand about these vibrational imprints, you can figure out where your core recordings are, the things that trigger you, or traumatic experiences, like where are they recorded in your body? And then you could start directing your meditations to help release them and heal them. So, and that's part of the way I teach sound healing, the way I guide each session. I try to open up people's awareness of this. So, and then once we get this, we can operate, when we can start to, heal ourselves, like for real, like have true transformation. And then moving forward, you can have new ways of operating. So when you are in a new traumatic experience, you can do certain things so you don't have such a strong imprint on your vessel, and it doesn't affect you for the rest of your life. Like, and that's, that's a little bit of the HeartMath helps you with some of that.
I was just going to ask you about that because I'm actually obsessed with HeartMath. I think this is such a powerful tool, and so few people know about it. It's like, I would love to hear more about that from you, and like some of the benefits that you've seen.
Yeah. So HeartMath is really neat. It is, for those who don't know about it, it's a software that it's biofeedback software, and you hook yourself up, or I think it's always good to work with a practitioner in the beginning, because there's things that they can guide you through that you may not be able to tap into on your own, even though they do have an app. But in real time, through thinking about certain things, breathing certain ways, you can see how anger, anxiety, stress is affecting your body. And it measures heart rate variance. And that is your heartbeat, the space between each heartbeat, and the rhythm. And you can see in real time, like if I were to guide you and say, well, go put yourself back into a moment where you felt stressed, or you're frustrated about something, and just pick something that happened in the last couple of weeks, and you'll just start thinking about that moment, and you could see on the graph what's happening in your body and where the stress on your heart center. And then I can guide you to a peaceful place, and there's a few other things to guide you back to a healthier, what we call is coherence. And then within minutes, you can see the rhythm, the heart wave become more balanced, and getting that visual representation of it makes it more tangible, because we're dealing with vibration. We're dealing with rhythm and patterns in our body that we're, having that visual in front of you. It's mind blowing. It'll change you. So next time, I have one person who, a gentleman who had anxiety, and he smoked a lot. He had a lot of rage. What do you call it? Car rage? Not car, driving rage?
Road rage.
Road rage. Road rage. Thank you. He would have like road rage issues, and so we did a bunch of sessions, and literally like just after the first session, he was like driving on the road, and he had a moment, and he literally just, the first thing that popped up in his head was the graph on the computer screen that I showed him.
Oh, wow.
So then he started practicing it's basically, they're teaching you through HeartMath, you become more self-aware of stress, how you're holding stress in your body, and then you're given the techniques in the moment to transform them, to switch them up. So the more you practice it, after so many weeks, it becomes like secondhand, and
it's like a muscle.
Yeah, exactly. You're developing a muscle. And moving forward, if you are in a new stressful, traumatic experience, you like drop into the breathing, the breath work, and within minutes you're fine, or even less. It could be seconds, and then you just keep going, and you can persevere through these moments. And
I was going to ask if you actually mix the sound healing sometimes with the heart coherence practices.
That's exactly what I do. In two ways. In the groups, I do some mini HeartMath influence things when I'm dropping people into the sound bath, and when I'm pulling people out. I guide them through some breath work, light breath work. And then when I do my privates, the vocal toning, and then also I can see, by witnessing what's going on the computer screen, we usually start or end with some vocal toning, and then we I'm able to kind of prescribe them some vocal work to help with those imprints. So we're able to identify where they are. So HeartMath can help identify things, but then once we know exactly, like, I'll bring in the chakras and figure out where it is in the body, and then teach them how to tone into that to start unraveling and loosening up that imprint. And yeah, they really go hand in hand.
That is incredible. And heart coherence is something that I think in my own breathwork practice and the circles that I hold, it has been such an important practice, just because I don't know, not to categorize or create a hierarchy out of it, but I just find that like when we are able to kind of just bring our hearts into coherence in a very conscious way, it almost feels like everything just kind of follows from that, and it really is all about like self-regulation or being able to regulate your body. But I love that your client was able to regulate in that moment of road rage, because I find that is so, I mean, those are some serious triggers. That's really difficult. And
yeah,
it just goes to show that the work is really working.
Yeah. And he was smoking less within 2 weeks. And,
Wow.
that was really cool to see his transformation. I think for males, especially that aren't as connected to their emotional body, I think HeartMath is amazing to have that tool. There's this thing called a resonance field, when we all come together to meditate together in the groups and connecting our breath. And when we do the vocal toning together, it is so magical. So it's not just an individual thing, it's a collective thing, and it just broke my heart at the beginning of COVID, when people are chanting, "I can't breathe." And, and I know it had a representation of supporting what happened, but at the same time, like even chanting that, like what kind of imprint is that doing to our collective?
Yeah.
So some of my sessions, I had to like counter that and teach people to say, "I can breathe," because we are still alive. And as long as we are still alive, we have to breathe, and we can't allow ourselves to go down those paths.
That is such an important point, because chanting and just to follow up on what you were saying about vocal toning, the first time I had ever done that was in your class, and that shit is powerful. And as somebody who has had a complicated relationship with her voice in the past, and still does to many degrees, but like I found that the vocal toning, I was almost nervous to do it at first, and then suddenly, as I was able to fall into it, being supported by the group and you, Michelle, like it was powerful. It was so powerful. And it's something that I need to continue to practice, because I do think that personally my throat chakra is kind of blocked. And it's all related to like me being able to like speak out and speak my truth. But, what you were saying about the chanting and the words that we chant, like the words hold so much power and energy that we have to be careful about what it is that we say out loud. Even when it is a rally cry meant to empower, it is potentially doing damage when we're saying the wrong things in this powerful group,
There's one thing I learned about, because I was definitely an activist when I was younger, and I would, go out to the rallies and do the protesting and everything. But at some point I realized that it's one thing to be angry, and it is so important to express that. And I teach that too, like express it, but know when you get to that pivotal point where enough's enough. And now let's come back to love. Let's come back to peace, but also let's come back to the solutions. So what I started to do is channeling my energy differently. I'm like, okay, everyone's going to have their calling, how they need to show up and how they need to project and participate. And I got to the point where I want to participate and work towards solutions, not kicking and screaming about the problems. So that's where I think there's nothing wrong if people need to chant that, chant it but get to that point where, okay, now let's shift and grow and evolve, because if we keep staying stuck in that position, we're going nowhere. So that's where, especially with the art shows, just to circle back, that's why the themes, like as I started developing these themed art shows, I just got more and more conscious with the subjects that we were addressing. And then the same thing with the sound healing. I wanted to teach people this in a way that wasn't too woo-woo or too spiritual or too religious. And I'm like, the way I teach the vocal toning, they're just vowel sounds. They're not, there is the mantra, that you could do, but some people might think that's too, spiritual or hippie or something. So I try to teach in a fun way that's welcoming for all walks of life. And your voice is the most powerful tool before any other instrument and before anybody else. So just tapping into vocal toning and developing, just making any sounds. If it's angry sounds, express it, because if you don't express it, then that's when it becomes the imprints. So, I have this fun exercise before we get started. I'm like, make an angry sound and, make your animal sound. I get people, expressing themselves and having fun with it. And we got to stop taking ourselves so seriously. So, I really do think we are meant to come here on earth. And of course, we're having an experience filled with all kinds of, ups and downs and all arounds. But we came here to frolic. We came here to dance and play. And, unfortunately, the last 2 years, it's been such a difficult time, but we can't forget this. And then we also have to look at, the system, like how is the system not serving humanity, because there's a lot of unhappy people out there. And the leaders, they need to start realizing this as well. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation, but but also the people, we have a choice and we get to choose, and we got to make sure we still have these freedoms moving forward as well. So
100%. I have a question for you that I've been personally mulling over, because I had a friend come to me and she has this idea of like wanting to put together a sound healing offering. And I'm curious from your perspective, where does music end and sound healing begin, or sound baths, I would say, because I do find that there is, I mean, obviously music is healing in it of itself, and it is a form of sound healing. But as a practitioner, what is your perspective on music and how it sort of butts up against what you do as a sound healing facilitator?
I think this is an excellent question, and it's something I face all the time. So they are two different things. There's three different ways to look at it, or how I see it. There's creating music as a creative expression for an artist. There is music therapy, which is more about melodies and rhythm. And then there's sound healing, and sound healing is about the actual quality of the sounds, the vibrations, the frequencies, and how they are interacting with the human vessel, with our cells. How are they interacting with our mind, our brain waves, and our breath, our nervous system. So if you can first see those three different areas, sound healing also can be very shamanic. And that's how I like to approach it. It's medicine. But it's important to know some basic music theory, to understand intervals, to understand dissonance, the difference between dissonance and resonance or coherence. And, I see it all the time. People go out and buy these instruments and they're playing their bowls, dissonant, not playing the right notes together. But you can use dissonance as medicine. And I talk about this before every session, because I do it for a couple minutes. But then I want to talk about the dosage. Like, how many minutes are you going to stir people up for? And what are you doing after? And, thinking about the order that you play your instruments from a medicinal point. So there is providing someone a relaxing musical experience. And then there's actual, again, the shamanic side of sound healing, and someone coming in to get an actual tune up to release and let go of something, to cleanse and come back to balance, and then like elevating them with harmonies and intervals. And that's where the music side comes in. And or if, and I have special guest musicians come all the time to my larger sound baths, and I save them for a specific moment, usually at the end. So, people have been taken on this amazing journey, and at the end, we get to kind of dance around energetically with these beautiful sounds. And usually they're rare instruments and amazing musicians. And so I do that a lot. And or I will plug and play depending on what kind of instrument they're playing. What are the sounds, the characteristics of that sound? Like, is it a violin or cello versus, I even had a saxophone player before, which was really cool and different. We've had Persian tar, sitar, the monochord. We've had guitar, charango, and, all these really amazing instruments. But, in this environment, it's more about sitting with the sound, and you're playing slower, and you don't want to come in after people are zenned out with the crystal bowls and end with some heavy metal. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, yeah, you just it's a different kind of music, and a lot of musicians they want to be heard, and which is fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. When they're playing their instruments, it's this amazing creative expression. But sometimes I have to like slow them down and kind of teach them how to listen differently than expressing. So there's that's exactly it. There's expressing, and then there's listening, and then finding that balance in this particular environment. And then there's times where, I've had a couple musicians that they just couldn't sit still. Like, they just couldn't wait for their time. And then sometimes they'll start doing things, and it wasn't their turn yet because they couldn't meditate. They're either used to being on stage or used to being, the person that's playing the whole time, but I would always have a conversation. Usually I in my particular situation, we would meet before, and we would do a practice jam, and I talk to them about the sensitivities, and I'm like, okay, well, this part is all you. So if you could just wait for that part, and then I promise this is your moment to shine. And in these other areas in the structure of the sound bath, if they have other sounds to contribute, like, I definitely welcome them, because I do like to mix it up. I like to make each experience have a unique, to make it unique, because I do have a following, and I want them to have a different experience every time, but I still want to have that structure, the integrity of sound healing, because you can walk away, people can be stirred up with headaches, not feeling right, and that's the part. That's why I created my training. Because when I did my training, it was online, and I got to learn a lot of things about sound healing, but it wasn't about putting together a sound bath and creating structure to that environment. And I think now there might be a few trainings out there, but my first 5 years, I had to figure it out on my own. And so now I'm downloading everything I learned, and I just want people to walk away feeling good, and just, if they're doing deep healing work, it's just enough. It's enough for them to go home and process, go home, guzzle a large glass of water, journal. Normally people, they have the best sleep ever after a sound bath, and their dreams are very activated and very vivid. And that's your subconscious, furthering the healing. So understanding that part of it as well. Sometimes it could take people more than 24 hours. Like, the next day you wake up and you feel amazing. Some people, it might be a little bit longer to integrate, what they're processing. And, some people go home and they're up all night cleaning the house. I've been that person, but, but it's so powerful, like these instruments, and how you play them, how you deliver, like even to like when I'm playing the crystal bowls, when I play each chakra, I actually, inside me, as the carrier of the sound wave, the player of these instruments, I'm saying mantras inside my mind as I'm playing each crystal bowl that resonates with that chakra. So even though they can't hear me, the intention behind the sounds are there. So
yeah, it carries through.
Yeah. So intention is really important when you're the practitioner.
I think when I was in your class, I didn't realize until you explained to us that each of the different instruments do different things. And there is this really beautiful order to all of it. It's not that it's like, and now I kind of feel like playing the gong, and so I'm just gonna play the gong. There was like this arc to all of it.
Yeah. It is like telling a story. You have your introduction, and you're going on a journey through these different sounds that do different things to you. And the most important things to have in mind is that we're relaxing the mind, the brain. And once the brain relaxes, the ego relaxes. And it's the ego that prevents you from doing a lot of the deeper healing. It makes the excuses to not go there. But once we can relax that part of you, that monkey mind, we can now get past. It's like that gate, that fence that we need to break through, and now we could start to tap into the energetic side of our body and the cellular imprints, the vibrational imprints. So with that in mind, I'm doing things to relax the mind so we can jump over that fence, or through it, tear that fence down. And, I've attended other sound baths, and I've watched other people that, it's kind of interesting. Like someone might say they're a trained sound healer. They might be trained in like Kundalini, which is another way of working with sound. And I actually love Kundalini. But there's real sound healing. There's more to it. There's a whole another science to it. So I've been to some of these other sound baths where they're gonging in random places, like what you said earlier, and people aren't grounded afterwards, and they're just too shook up. One thing to think about is, in a group dynamic, you have all walks of life coming to the experience. And there's people that are brand new to sound healing, and there's people that have now, at this point, especially here in Los Angeles, I'm now calling it the sound bath capital. But
it's so true.
And I like to call them soundies. It's like the people that come to all the sound baths, they're professional. They come with their blankets and their pillows, and they're ready with the eye masks and all the things for complete comfort, which is so awesome. I love the enthusiasm. But you have people that are, at this point, have been doing it on a regular basis, and they get it. They're in their practice. But there's the new people, and then there's also, some people have done deep healing work. There's people, I know plant medicine has made his way in, and now I think plant medicine has helped create more awareness to our vibrational body and how healing is so important. But you have all kinds of people entering the space, and these sounds are really powerful. They stir things up in others. So, not only, in the beginning when I'm talking about like guiding people in, how to connect and use your breath if you become uncomfortable during any of the moments, giving people those tools. But the other thing, the reason why I want to bring up how you can overdose people, and that's why as a sound practitioner is to think about the flow of your session, how much of each type of sound you are using, and what is the order, the flow, the delivery of it. And And with all of this in mind, you'll become a better sound healer with integrity, and you won't overdose people. But because it could still happen, like even with all my knowledge, people can still walk away with a headache because maybe they've never detoxed before. So, and that's where it's important to, drink that large glass of water and do all these other things to support the healing that you just went through, because you can have just as powerful of a healing experience with the sound, versus drinking a bottle of, not bottle, to drink a bottle of I was going to say a bottle of ayahuasca, but no, do not drink a bottle of ayahuasca. a cup of ayahuasca, or, I mean, even like, breath work is so powerful, but breath and sound, I mean, these two together, separately, they're amazing. And but my whole point is that you're in a group of people and you don't know who's going through what. You can have someone in the middle of cancer treatment, another person's going through a divorce, another person is activating their next chapter and just got a new job, and you have people going through really great things and that are manifesting, and other people are still healing more serious things in life. So I know on my end, I like to create an environment that welcomes everyone, no matter what they're processing, but also how I'm treating them. It's a blanket treatment that no matter what is happening, you're getting a well-balanced session. So those are the things I think about and want to share with people who come and train with me. I think this is really important, is to pay attention to these details. And once you do, you just know you're providing something that's of quality, and people will come back for more. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, thank you so much for sharing your process and, the kinds of journeys that you like to create, and the containers that you like to create, because I've had friends who have told me that, not only did they have headaches leaving sound baths, but they were taken to a dark place and they weren't able to get out of it. And they had to really rely on other tools that they had within their arsenal to, again, self-regulate. And that's exactly the opposite of what you should be receiving in a sound bath. But I love the consciousness that you're bringing to what you're creating, because I think that's, I'm speaking for myself, even going back to our hospital conversation, there sometimes is a lack of consciousness around sound. And with sound healing, it is medicine, just like plant medicine is medicine, and, all these different things, it's medicine. And so if you can overdose on it, it's not like you're just safe going into a sound bath where crystal bowls are being played. I mean, I think your point about dosage is so important to take in for anybody who is wanting to partake in a sound bath, because I do find that is, I think for people, it's a very gentle entry into inner work and into looking at some of the things that they may not have been able to see before. And so it's a really beautiful type of offering. But I think with that also sometimes is this sort of like a gloss over of the potency of it. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I like how you said that it's a gentle entry. So, for people who say that they can't meditate, especially, and the sounds actually help relax that monkey mind for those who have yet to accomplish doing it on their own. So, but yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. And then also self-regulation, that's something that needs to be talked about. And that's another thing I like to bring up before we start the session, is become the witness of emotions that are coming to the surface. And instead of getting agitated by a sound and be like, oh, I can't wait for this to be over and this is horrible, or, like getting into that mindset, be like, okay, I'm feeling agitated. Where is this in my body? Is it, in my belly, in my heart center, in my neck? Just start to witness yourself and learn about your behavior patterns. and or your vibrational imprints by witnessing them and not giving them that power, that subconscious, overpowering, and like now befriend it and start to understand it and also give it a voice and then release it, help release it.
Yeah, it's almost like the music and the tones can help sort of carry you into a space of more curiosity than sort of fear or anger. And so it lets you just sort of dissolve some of those things as they come to the surface.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So, and learning how to realign yourself, the self-regulation, realigning and choosing, knowing that you have a choice to operate in a healthier way.
Yeah. So important. We always love to end with this one question, which is, what is the biggest piece of wisdom that you now carry, having gone through your own personal healing, having learned so much about sound healing and, held so many beautiful spaces for others to heal? What is that one gem of wisdom that you feel that you kind of live your life by or hang your life on?
Wow. How can I answer that in the simplest way? I think we are living in a vibrational world. This human experience is vibrational, and it's not just sound. Taste, texture, vision, colors. Everything. Our senses are vibrational. But if we even step back from that, it's cyclical, day, night, months, the year, like those are all vibrations. And we're constantly shifting. And even though we have these cyclical patterns, every 30 days, every 7 days, and every year, the planets are moving around us, there's always a new influence and there's always a new experience. So being flexible, that's another thing I talk about is, how flexible are we as we move through change, and being open and curious as we journey forward, on the earth plane. My favorite quote, I actually just said this the other night and someone posted yesterday, how it really was profound for her to hear it, but it's the simple quote: for every door that closes, a new door opens. So those are the things that, even in the frustrating times, like learning how to move through them and breathe through them, and just being flexible. How flexible can we be? I think, just to be open, keep learning, don't stop learning, don't close up, and eyes wide open, be curious.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that so much.
Yeah, this has just been such a tremendous conversation, and I just feel like it's so needed right now. And it's funny because I've been noticing, I like to notice patterns in our entertainment, like shows that seem to be, on every single network that are similar in nature or whatever. And recently, I mean, there's always music shows going on, but recently there have been an influx of shows around music and deconstructing music and sound and how to create sounds and stuff, and just this new consciousness that I'm starting to kind of just observe. Most notably, like, I think if you have Apple TV, Mark Ronson's sound, I forget what it's called, sound something. Anyway,
oh my gosh, it's so good.
It's a brilliant show, and he just deconstructs all these different instruments and learns about sound. But I just find that this conversation is coming at, a very divine time. And I think there is so much that we can learn and be held and heal through sound. And I so appreciate you and your work and your consciousness in this area, because I know I've learned so much from you in that class. And I literally want to go to every single one of your sound healing productions. Like, they're magic. And so just thank you. Thank you for sharing yourself with us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, and I'm excited to see, how everything shifts and changes, and it's been such a joy to see sound healing finally, get some attention. To be honest, in the beginning, I was having an identity crisis because I was like art show girl and curator, and I'm like, and I kind of hit it. I was just like, no one's gonna understand. They're gonna think I'm super hippy dippy, but at some point, I'm like, screw that. I don't care what anyone thinks. And people were saying to me, like, you need to bring this into the art show. And I'm like, I can't mix them. I don't think people get it. And then sure enough, now years later, there are art installations and, interactive things, working with the sounds and creating these amazing like light and color environments. And that's really in the end, what I find the most fascinating, and maybe this will help close things up. My intention behind the art shows, when you create art, it is a form of meditating. When you're witnessing art, viewing it, that's a form of meditating. You have to become completely present with this art piece, and creating it or taking it in. And in the end, art, working with color, that's vibration. It's a vibrational expression. And I think it in the end, it makes sense to me now, looking back, how I landed into sound healing, because I've always been fascinated with how vibration, trying to understand, what moves our body, and also, how vibration affects us. And here I am now, I reinvented myself, as sonic being, and I guess we're allowed to have multiple chapters in our life. So, I had the art chapter, and now I'm in the sound chapter, and it's been so amazing to see people embrace it, from those moments where I was like hiding it, and now I don't have to hide it anymore. And seeing people from those, like just actually the other night, one of my artists came, from one of my art. I mean, I have it happen all the time, but when I have people from that world cross over into this world, I love it. It's like, okay, they're being inspired, and I was inspired by their artwork, and we're all coming together and tuning into the same frequency, and sharing these experiences together. So I think it's wonderful. And also seeing, major celebrities getting into sound healing. I've actually done sound baths for a handful of them. And it's been wild to like, give them this experience. And then we start talking about, exactly your question earlier about where music and sound, how they can interact together, and how, really is the intention differently behind the two. And I think all musicians should tap into sound healing, and it might change how they create. So, and that I see that happening now. It's especially since COVID, a lot of musicians are getting into sound healing.
Yeah. Even subconsciously, I feel like my husband, who's a musician, is working with music in a whole new way now, where I'm just like tapping into like some of the things that he's created. I'm like, I want to use that for my breathwork circle. I want to use that for my breathwork circle.
Right?
It's really cool.
I know. I started recording. I'm actually finishing my album right now.
Oh my God. I was going to ask if there's somewhere that we could access your music or buy it.
Yeah. So I've been, okay. So COVID, damn COVID. No, it made me, we all started live streaming, and that was a whole nother beast, is figuring out how to deliver these sounds with the best quality through technology. And these vibrations are just so powerful and wild. And when you are trying to figure out how to mic them and record them properly. And so I went through a whole journey at the beginning of COVID, trying to figure out the live streaming thing. So I do have a YouTube channel, and I don't know how many I should count. I'm not sure how many videos or journeys are up there, but there's a ton of new moon, full moon sound meditations. Wow. of me and my, I turned my guest bedroom into a little live streaming studio. And so that's up there. And then the album, so my first album that I'm finishing is a bunch of crystal bowl tracks, and then there's going to be a bonus track of me playing the monochord with the bowls, and So we're just in the final mixing in the next couple of days. We have one more round, and then I'm going to start. Then I'm learning about distribution and all
that good stuff.
Now I got to learn about the music industry. But, I started this recording project like 4 years ago, I feel. And then I stopped, and it was just so hard because you're running around doing it live in person and to like dedicate time in the studio. And so, but anyway, I was hoping to release it this week with the Lionsgate. But I think we need another week or so. We'll see what happens the next few days. But it is coming, and people could get on my email list at Sonic Being. I'm on Instagram, on Facebook, and I'm pretty sure we're going to do a full moon outdoor sound bath in a couple weeks. And it's been awesome to be back in person. We did a couple sessions in a studio last month, but we stopped with the new variant and kind of thought, let's be outdoors. The weather's good, and let us ride through this wave of whatever's going on. And, for me, I want to keep everyone safe and make sure people feel safe and comfortable in the environment. So right now we are safe in nature. So I always say, definitely go hear these sounds live in person. Don't rely on recordings because they don't do.
It's totally different.
The magic. It doesn't give it justice. It's just so magical being in person, hearing these sounds. But I've got recordings. So wherever you're at in the world, I welcome everyone to check it out. And to drop.
Incredible.
Yeah, and actually hopefully this will launch in like either right before or right after the recording launches, so we'll definitely link to that as well.
Awesome. Amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michelle. This was beautiful.
This was so amazing. I can't wait to go to one of your events in person. I'm so excited.
Amazing. Well, let me know, and I'll make sure we have a nice cozy spot, front row. Dude, I'm telling you, you get these professional sound bathers. They show up early and they want front row seats. They're like they want to get their mat down. They want to throw the blanket down. And sometimes people are like, "Can I move that mat over? Because I want to be right here." And I'm just like, "Oh my God." Anyway,
I love it. It's like the Forever Hollywood Cemetery movie showings, like people who arrive super early, but now they're doing with the sound baths, which to me, I feel like, all right, that means that there's something really magical happening when people are this obsessive about it,
Oh yeah.
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 It's great. It's so amazing. So, and I want you to give me a sound bath, Ellen.
Okay. Let me work up to that.
I mean, I'm telling you, after the other night, I was like, I want to go to my own sound bath. Like, when are I need to get all my students together and make them.
That would be so cool.
That would be super rad.
I'm like, show me what you got.
It'll be like a sound bath of one, just Michelle, and then all of us like playing for you. That would be so rad.
Yes, I am so manifesting that.
Well, I definitely want to help co-facilitate like one of your upcoming sound baths for sure. That'd be super fun.
Yes, it's so much fun.
Music for Woo New is composed by Adam Miller.